The room filled with the sound of laughter the moment she said her call sign. Ghost? One of the SEALs chuckled. What are you, some kind of Halloween mascot? She didn't flinch. Standing there in her simple gray t-shirt and cargo pants, she looked nothing like the elite soldiers in front of her. No badges, no stripes, no visible rank, just calm, unreadable eyes. Commander Briggs leaned back in his chair, half smiling. All right, Ghost, you say you're assigned to our op. Mind telling me what division sent you? She paused, meeting his gaze. You already know. Her tone was steady, controlled, and somehow it made the room quiet. A few taps later, Briggs opened her classified personnel file. The smile vanished. The room went still. Every man who had laughed at her a minute ago was now staring at her in silence. The room filled with laughter the moment she said her call sign. Ghost? One of the SEALs snorted, leaning back in his chair. What are you, some kind of Halloween mascot? A few others joined in, shaking their heads. It was a typical reaction when someone new, especially a woman, walked into a team of hardened Navy SEALs claiming to be part of their mission. The room reeked of sweat, gun oil, and ego, but she stood there, calm and unmoved, her gray t-shirt neatly tucked into her combat pants. No patches or rank displayed, just that quiet, unshakable stillness that didn't belong in a room full of noise. Commander Briggs, a broad-shouldered man with scars that told his own stories, smirked. All right, Ghost, he said, his tone half joking, half challenging. You say you're assigned to our op. Mind telling me what division sent you? She didn't blink. You already know. Her voice was low, controlled even, and somehow that tone changed the air in the room. Briggs's amusement flickered into curiosity. He turned to his laptop, fingers tapping across the keys as he accessed the classified personnel network. The others kept laughing, whispering, waiting for the joke to continue. But then the commander's face changed. The smirk faded. His brow furrowed. The screen's glow reflected in his eyes, and the room fell silent. One by one, the others noticed. Sir? One of them asked. Briggs didn't answer. He just looked up at her, his jaw tightening. You're supposed to be dead. She nodded slightly. That's the point. No one spoke after that. 2 days earlier, none of them had ever heard her name. The Pentagon had informed the SEAL team that their hostage extraction mission in Eastern Europe would include an independent consultant. Those words alone made the entire unit groan. No one liked outsiders, and definitely not civilians. But orders were orders. They had expected some desk-bound analyst or a liaison officer. Instead, she had walked into the training bay like a shadow, quiet, unreadable, with that strange calm that came from having nothing left to prove. When she introduced herself with a single word, Ghost, the laughter had been instant, sharp, almost cruel. She didn't react. She didn't need to. They didn't know that 5 years earlier she had vanished off record after a classified mission in Syria. Officially, her unit, Phantom Recon, didn't exist. The few who knew about it whispered her name with equal parts respect and fear. She was the kind of operative sent into places so dark that even the military denied those operations ever happened. Briggs scrolled through her file again, as if trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Clearance level, Omega. Division, JSOC, Phantom Recon. Status, KIA. Operation, classified. The details stopped there. The rest of the file was redacted, entire pages blacked out. But there was one line still visible at the bottom of the report. Operative known as Ghost. Mission results, successful. Casualties, all enemy combatants eliminated. Briggs looked up, his voice quieter now. You were with Phantom Recon. She gave a single nod. Until it ended. He swallowed. How did you— I didn't, she interrupted. That's why you don't see me in your records. From that moment, the jokes stopped. The men who had laughed now watched her differently, some with awe, others with unease. But she didn't seem to notice. She simply pulled a folded map from her pocket and spread it across the table. Your infiltration plan has a flaw, she said evenly. The enemy will spot your movement at the second checkpoint. They've repositioned a sniper nest here. She tapped a spot on the map. And a backup patrol sweeps the area every 40 minutes. You'll need to move 15 minutes earlier or risk losing your window. Briggs frowned. How do you know that? She looked at him steadily. Because I was there before. Different country. Same enemy. The room stayed silent as she began to outline her version of the plan. Concise, precise, almost surgical. Every route, every blind spot, every possible backup. She didn't present it like a theory. She knew. And by the time she finished, even the most skeptical among them couldn't deny that she wasn't just another analyst. 3 nights later, the operation began. The fog over the abandoned village was thick enough to hide the moon. The SEAL team moved through the ruins like ghosts themselves, silent, invisible. But 15 minutes into the mission, comms went dead. Static filled their earpieces. They were blind, deaf, and surrounded. Briggs clenched his jaw. He tried to re-establish contact, but nothing came through. The last transmission they heard was the sound of gunfire, then silence. Minutes stretched into hours. The team feared the worst. Then through the faint crackle of the radio, a whisper came. Calm, controlled, cold. Target secured. Moving to extraction. It was her. When they finally reached the rendezvous point, the hostages were already there, tied, shaken, but alive. And standing in the shadows, half hidden by the fog, was Ghost. Her face was streaked with dirt, her rifle steady, her eyes sharp and alert. There were no visible wounds, no sign of fear, just a faint smile that barely touched her lips. Briggs walked up to her slowly. "How did you—" She shrugged. "Old habits die hard." He looked at her for a long moment, then asked quietly, "Ghost, what are you really?" She met his gaze, then reached into her pocket and pulled out her dog tags. She placed them in his hand. He turned them over and read the inscription. Classified. Before he could say another word, she turned and walked toward the waiting chopper. The fog swallowed her whole, leaving nothing behind but silence. From that day forward, no one ever laughed at the name Ghost again. Briggs sat there, still staring at the screen, the glow of classified documents flickering across his face. The room had gone dead silent. A few minutes ago, laughter had echoed against the steel walls. Now all that remained was the uneasy hum of the ceiling fan. The men who had mocked her name, Ghost, were now looking at her like she had walked straight out of a legend. He scrolled again, his finger trembling slightly. Everything about her file screamed secrecy. Clearance level Omega, Division JSOC Phantom Recon, Mission History redacted. Status KIA. He had seen hundreds of classified profiles in his years as a SEAL commander, but nothing like this. It wasn't just the blacked-out pages, it was the tone of what little remained visible. Someone high up wanted her erased from history. "You're supposed to be dead," he muttered again, his voice lower this time, almost as if afraid the walls might be listening. She gave a faint nod. That's the point. Briggs leaned back slowly, studying her. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her eyes were cold, calm, with a depth that spoke of things few men ever saw and came back from. Around them, the SEALs stood frozen. A few exchanged uneasy looks, others just stared at her. Even the youngest among them, the loudest just minutes ago, now looked like he wanted to disappear. One of them, Petty Officer Cole, finally broke the silence. "What the hell is Phantom Recon?" Briggs didn't answer. He couldn't. The name alone was enough to shut down questions. The unit wasn't supposed to exist. He'd heard whispers about it years ago, rumors told in half-drunk voices at bars outside bases. A team trained for the dirtiest, most impossible missions. No insignia, no recognition, no return. Operatives who went in knowing they'd never be acknowledged, not even if they succeeded. Ghost watched their faces carefully, her expression still unreadable. "Your mission profile is incomplete," she said, her tone firm, businesslike. "There are new patrols in your extraction zone, and the route you've chosen will be compromised within 48 hours. Briggs frowned. "We have fresh intel from command. Satellite confirms the path is clear." She gave him a look so sharp it could cut steel. "Command doesn't have eyes where I do." He didn't know how to respond. There was something unsettling in the way she said it, like she wasn't boasting, just stating fact. She stepped closer to the table, pulled a folded satellite image from her bag and spread it open. Every line, every contour was marked with precise red ink. Enemy rotations, guard stations, sniper nests. "How did you get this?" Briggs asked quietly. She glanced up, her voice steady. Let's just say some ghosts still have access to old channels. Cole leaned forward, scanning the map. You're saying the eastern wall is hot? She nodded. 2 snipers rotate every 40 minutes. You move at your current schedule and you'll walk right into their sights. Briggs studied the layout. Her data was cleaner, sharper, more recent than what they'd been given. Every detail matched his instinct, the same instinct that Command had dismissed when he questioned their intelligence packet earlier. She was right. He looked up at her. You've done this before. Too many times, she replied simply. The way she said it, it wasn't arrogance. It was exhaustion, the kind that came from living in the dark too long. Briggs exhaled. All right, Ghost, you're in. That night, while the others prepared their gear, the air on base felt different. No one dared joke anymore. Every man who passed her gave a small nod or avoided eye contact altogether. In the corner of the barracks, she sat alone, quietly cleaning her weapon with the precision of someone who had done it 1,000 times in silence. Cole watched her for a while before whispering to another teammate. She doesn't move like us. It's like she's waiting for something. Or someone, the other replied quietly. When dawn came, Ghost was already on the landing pad before the rest of them. No caffeine, no chatter, no hesitation. She moved like she had rehearsed this mission her whole life. Briggs caught up to her, offering a headset. You sure about this plan? He asked. Her gaze didn't shift from the horizon. If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't be here. He studied her face for a long moment. There were faint scars near her jawline and something in her eyes, something old, deep and tired. He wanted to ask what happened in Syria, why her file ended with KIA, but something told him not to. Some stories weren't meant to be reopened. As the rotor blades began to spin, she turned slightly toward him. Commander, she said, her voice cutting through the wind. When this is over, I go back to being a ghost. You understand? Briggs nodded. Understood. Hours later, as the Black Hawk thundered toward the drop zone, Briggs couldn't stop replaying her file in his mind. Confirmed KIA, it said. But what kind of dead operative could still draw breath, still hold command presence like that? He'd seen men broken by far less than what she must have endured. When the chopper neared the ridge, the radio crackled. A voice from command barked final instructions, but Briggs tuned them out. His eyes were on Ghost. She was staring down through the open side of the helicopter, her expression unreadable. You ever think about quitting? Cole shouted over the noise. She didn't look up. I did once. What stopped you? She finally turned, her lips curving into a ghost of a smile. Dead people don't quit. The line landed like a stone in the pit of every man's stomach. When the team fast roped down into the fog-choked valley, Ghost was the first to touch ground. She moved without sound, every step deliberate, precise. Even in total darkness, she seemed to know exactly where to go. Briggs whispered into the comm. All units, follow Ghost's lead. No one questioned it this time. She guided them through enemy territory as if she had walked it before, predicting movements, sensing danger seconds before it appeared. At one point, they froze as a patrol passed within 10 feet of them. But Ghost's hand signal told them when to breathe, when to move, when to vanish again. By the time they reached the first checkpoint, Briggs realized something undeniable. She wasn't just good, she was otherworldly. And for the first time in his career, Commander Briggs, the man who trusted no one outside his team, felt safer in the shadows because Ghost was leading them through it. The fog was so thick it felt alive, curling around their boots and swallowing sound. The night was cold and still, the kind of silence that made even breathing seem too loud. Somewhere beyond the ruined walls of the village, enemy patrols moved, boots crunching over gravel, rifles slung lazily but ready. Briggs crouched behind a collapsed wall, his heartbeat steady but his nerves sharp. The extraction window was tight, 15 minutes, no second chances. He glanced at his team, silhouettes against the faint light of the moon, then at her, Ghost. She was kneeling in the dirt, one hand pressed to the ground, listening. Not through the comms, not through tech, just listening. She raised 2 fingers, 2 hostiles ahead. Briggs nodded, signaling the team to move. Ghost went first, melting into the darkness like smoke. her movements almost too quiet to be real. Within seconds, two muffled cracks broke the silence, followed by the soft thud of bodies hitting the ground. She waved them forward. Every man there had seen combat, but none of them had seen anything like her. She wasn't fast because she was reckless. She was fast because she was certain. Every shot, every step, every breath was deliberate. It was as if she already knew what was going to happen before it did. They advanced through the ruins, weaving between half-destroyed buildings and burnt-out vehicles. Briggs checked his watch, 12 minutes left. They were close. A voice came over the short-range radio, thick with static. "This is Alpha 2, hostiles closing from the west." Briggs looked to Ghost. She was already moving, sliding into position behind a crumbling wall. She raised her rifle, calm as stone. Through her scope, she tracked movement in the fog. 3, maybe 4 silhouettes creeping closer. She didn't wait for the order. A flash, a breath, another flash. When it was done, only silence remained. Cole whispered, "Holy hell, she's unreal." Briggs didn't answer. He couldn't look away from her. He'd seen top-tier marksmen at work before, but this was different. Her precision wasn't skill, it was instinct, honed by something deeper than training. They reached the target building, a 2-story structure barely standing. Windows shattered, smoke drifting from somewhere inside. Briggs signaled the entry team forward, but Ghost stopped him. "Not that door," she said quietly. He frowned. "Why not?" She didn't reply, just pointed to a faint reflection on the ground, almost invisible. A tripwire. 1 step and half the team would have been gone. Briggs exhaled slowly. "You just saved 6 lives." She didn't even blink. 6 is a good number. Let's not waste it. They breached through the side instead. Inside, the air was thick with dust and fear. The hostages, 4 men and a woman, were huddled in the corner, blindfolded and trembling. Ghost moved first, cutting restraints, whispering calm directions. Her tone was steady, gentle, nothing like the cold efficiency she carried outside. For a moment, Briggs saw something human flicker behind her eyes. Then gunfire erupted from upstairs. "Contact 2nd floor!" Someone shouted. Briggs ducked behind cover, bullets slicing through the air. Ghost was already moving up the staircase before he could stop her, moving with the silent confidence of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "Ghost, wait!" But she didn't. The stairwell shook with the thunder of gunfire, then silence. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then her voice came through the comms, low, calm, unwavering. Threat neutralized. "Clear the ground floor." "I'll cover." Briggs allowed himself a small exhale. She wasn't just leading this mission. She was holding it together. By the time they regrouped, the hostages were secured and ready for extraction. The evac zone was a quarter-mile east, through open terrain now crawling with reinforcements. Their window was closing. "Command, this is Alpha 1, Briggs said into his radio. "Package secured, requesting immediate pickup. Static." No response. He tried again. Nothing. The jamming field was stronger now. Ghost crouched beside him, scanning the tree line. "They're cutting you off. They know where we are." "So what do we do?" Briggs asked. She looked at him, expression unreadable. "We move before they do." The team moved fast, darting between cover, leading the terrified hostages through the mist. Every few minutes, Ghost stopped, turned, and covered their flank. Her rifle spoke only when necessary, 1 shot, 1 kill, no waste. But the enemy was closing in. Gunfire echoed through the fog, bullets striking walls and dirt. Cole stumbled, catching a graze on his arm. Briggs pulled him up, but Ghost was already beside them, dragging him to safety like it was nothing. "Keep moving," she ordered. "You stop, you die." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried command. The kind that made men listen without thinking. They reached the edge of the forest where the extraction chopper was supposed to land, but the clearing was empty. No rotor blades. No sound. "Command, this is Alpha 1, where's our bird?" Briggs shouted. Static. Ghost checked her watch, then the horizon. "They're not coming," she said simply. Briggs turned to her, anger rising. "What do you mean, they're not?" She cut him off. "Because they think we're already dead." It hit him then. She'd known. From the beginning, she'd known Command wouldn't risk extraction for a compromised team. It was the same kind of mission she'd been on before, disposable, untraceable. So what now? Briggs asked, quieter this time. She looked toward the east where the faint hum of a patrol convoy was growing louder. Now we improvise. Before he could ask what she meant, she was gone, vanished into the mist. Minutes later, explosions ripped through the trees. Flames rose in the distance, and the patrol scattered in chaos. Then, through the haze, came the sound of rotor blades. Briggs stared up as a black chopper, unmarked, descended through the fog. The pilot's voice crackled through his comms. "Alpha Team, this is Raven, courtesy of your ghost." They boarded fast, pulling the hostages in. As the chopper lifted, Briggs looked down through the open door, scanning the burning village below. And there she was, standing alone in the smoke, rifle slung over her shoulder, watching them rise. He grabbed the headset. "Ghost, get on the bird." "That's an order." Her voice came back, faint but steady. "Negative. Someone has to cover your trail." "Ghost, don't do this." But she was already gone from sight. Hours later, back at base, Command debriefed the team. They asked for details for confirmation. Briggs gave them what they wanted except for one thing. When they asked who coordinated the extraction, he simply said she did. "Who?" the officer asked. Briggs handed over a single dog tag, mud-stained, the letters barely visible. One word was engraved on the metal. "Classified." He looked out the window toward the horizon. Somewhere out there she was still moving, still fighting, still a ghost. And no one ever laughed at that name again.